Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. We have breaking news coming out of Eastern Europe that could mark one of the most significant developments in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Reports are emerging that Russia's so-called Crimea Corridor, the vital land bridge connecting mainland Russia to occupied Crimea, has been destroyed in a massive coordinated attack. This corridor has long been the lifeline of Russia's southern military operations, and its destruction represents not only a strategic catastrophe for Moscow, but also a major symbolic victory for Kyiv. In the early hours of this morning, multiple explosions were reported along key stretches of the route linking Mariupol, Melitopol, and Crimea. Satellite imagery and local footage show large sections of railway lines, bridges, and military supply convoys engulfed in flames. The strike, which Ukrainian officials have confirmed as a special operation, appears to have been carried out using a combination of long-range missiles and drone swarms. Witnesses describe hearing a series of blasts that shook the ground for miles, followed by secondary explosions believed to be ammunition depots and fuel convoys detonating in a chain reaction. This land corridor, established by Russian forces early in the war, was crucial for moving troops, fuel, and ammunition between the Russian mainland and Crimea. It ran along Ukraine's southern coast, connecting the occupied regions of Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia to the Crimean peninsula. Since losing control of several frontline positions, Moscow has relied heavily on this corridor to sustain its occupation forces. Analysts have long described it as Russia's jugular vein in the south, a single vulnerable artery supplying everything from logistics to reinforcements. Now, according to multiple intelligence reports, that artery has been severed. Initial assessments suggest that Ukrainian forces targeted key choke points, including railway junctions near Tokmak and Melitopol, as well as the Chonhar bridge system, one of the primary links between mainland Ukraine and Crimea. Satellite photos show craters large enough to cut through entire stretches of road, with columns of smoke visible even from space. Russian military channels on Telegram are describing the attack as the most serious breach of logistics since the war began. The scale of the damage has reportedly paralyzed Russian supply lines across the southern front. Fuel shortages are already being reported in Crimea, with residents lining up at gas stations and local authorities imposing rationing measures. Military analysts believe that this disruption could cripple Russia's ability to sustain its positions in Zaporizhzhia and Kherson. Without steady resupply, Russian troops stationed there could face major setbacks in the coming days, especially as winter approaches. This attack did not come out of nowhere. For months, Ukrainian forces have been systematically targeting the infrastructure that supports Russian occupation: bridges, rail lines, command centers, and supply depots. The Crimea Corridor has been under constant surveillance by Ukrainian drones and Western intelligence satellites. What appears to have happened now is the culmination of weeks, if not months, of careful planning and coordination. Ukrainian sources describe the operation as a decapitation strike, designed not just to damage logistics, but to make the entire route unusable for months. For the Kremlin, this is a devastating blow, both militarily and politically. Vladimir Putin has long portrayed Crimea as untouchable, the crown jewel of his 2014 annexation and a symbol of Russian resurgence. Maintaining the land corridor was central to that illusion of strength. Its destruction not only disrupts the war effort, but also strikes at the heart of Putin's narrative of control. Within hours of the attack, Russian state media scrambled to downplay the situation, claiming that minor damage had been inflicted and that repair work was already underway. However, independent footage contradicts those claims, showing extensive destruction far beyond quick repair. Inside Russia, frustration and panic are mounting. Pro-war bloggers and military commentators have openly criticized the Ministry of Defense for its failure to protect such a critical supply route. Some are calling for resignations at the highest levels, while others are demanding immediate retaliation against Ukrainian infrastructure. The tone on Russian social media has turned grim, with one popular channel calling the attack a catastrophe that could alter the entire southern campaign. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, the mood is triumphant. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy praised the operation in a brief statement, saying that every bridge and every convoy that fuels, occupation will fall. He stopped short of providing operational details but hinted that this is just the beginning of a broader strategy to isolate Crimea entirely. The destruction of the land bridge could mark the next phase in Ukraine's effort to reclaim its southern territories and put pressure directly on the Russian positions Inside Crimea itself, military experts say this move could force Russia into a logistical nightmare, with the Crimea Bridge, also known as the Kerch Bridge, still under repair from previous attacks. Moscow now faces a near-total blockade of overland routes into Crimea. The only remaining supply options involve ferry crossings over the Kerch Strait or risky naval routes through the Black Sea, both of which are under constant threat from Ukrainian missiles and drones. This drastically limits Russia's ability to reinforce or resupply its troops, potentially leaving thousands stranded or undersupplied in the coming weeks. The timing of this operation is also significant. Winter is approaching, and military campaigns in the region become much harder as temperatures drop. By cutting off the Crimea Corridor now, Ukraine effectively ensures that Russian forces will face logistical paralysis just as conditions worsen. It's a move that echoes the strategic warfare of past conflicts. Strike the supply lines, isolate the enemy, and let time and attrition do the rest. Western allies have praised Ukraine's boldness and precision in the attack. Though official confirmation is scarce, defense analysts suggest that advanced Western weaponry, possibly long-range ATAK-MS missiles or Storm Shadow systems, played a key role in the operation. If true, this would highlight the growing capability and confidence of the Ukrainian military to strike deep into occupied territories once considered beyond reach. For Putin, the optics are disastrous. He has spent months boasting of Russia's control over the so-called land corridor to Crimea, presenting it as proof that his invasion had achieved irreversible gains. Now that corridor lies in ruins and the images of burning bridges and destroyed convoys are circulating across the world, in the information war, Ukraine has scored a massive victory, one that undermines Russia's claims of stability and dominance. In the days ahead, Moscow is likely to retaliate with a wave of missile and drone strikes across Ukrainian cities, as it has done after previous setbacks. But experts warn that such attacks, while devastating to civilians, do little to change the battlefield realities. The loss of the Crimea Corridor cannot be easily undone. It will take months of reconstruction, vast resources, and relative safety from further strikes, none of which Russia currently has. This moment could mark a turning point in the war. With Crimea now more isolated than ever, Ukraine might intensify its focus on retaking the peninsula, not through direct invasion, but through systematic strangulation of supply and morale. Each new strike makes Russian positions less sustainable, eroding both their military effectiveness and the illusion of permanence that Putin has tried so hard to maintain. As of now, emergency crews are struggling to contain fires along the corridor. Footage shows long lines of trucks and armored vehicles abandoned along destroyed routes. Satellite feeds confirm that multiple bridges have collapsed entirely. The full extent of the damage will take days to assess, but already, military observers are calling it one of the most devastating single strikes of the war. In the broader picture, this attack signals a new phase in the conflict, one where Ukraine is no longer merely defending, but systematically dismantling the infrastructure of occupation. For Russia, the loss of the Crimea Corridor is not just a setback, it's a potential collapse point. Without secure logistics, no army can sustain long-term operations. And as supplies dwindle and morale breaks, the consequences could ripple across the entire southern front. The message from Kyiv is clear. Crimea is not safe, and Russian control is not permanent. With every strike, Ukraine moves closer to reclaiming its territory, and Putin moves closer to facing the limits of his power. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops. The destruction of Russia's Crimea Corridor marks a pivotal moment, one that could redefine the war's next chapter. Stay tuned for more updates and analysis on what could be one of the most consequential blows yet to Moscow's war machine.